Stop scrolling, because the next penny you ignore could cost you millions. I'm serious. Right now, there's a specific Lincoln penny floating around that looks completely normal, but one tiny detail could make it worth up to $3 million. And most people, they spend it without even looking. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't some ancient coin locked in a museum. This is a coin that could still be hiding in your pocket change, in a jar in your car, maybe even sitting on your dresser right now. And the craziest part, even collectors miss it. Let me show you exactly why. It all starts with a very ordinary looking coin, the 1955 Lincoln penny. Nothing special at first glance. Same portrait, same color, same size. But there's a version of this coin, a rare, almost secret version, that has collectors going absolutely crazy. And it all comes down to one tiny detail that most people completely ignore: the mint mark. Now, you've probably seen mint marks before. A small letter under the year. Usually, it just tells you where the coin was made. No big deal, right? Wrong, because in 1955, something unusual happened at the Denver Mint, and it created one of the most confusing and valuable coins in US history. But the real value isn't what you think. You see, when people hear 1955 penny, they usually think of the famous double die error. That one's already well known. But this is different. This is the 1955 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark. And most people assume it's common. They see the D and instantly dismiss it. Huge mistake, because hidden among millions of normal coins, there are a few extremely rare versions that slipped through unnoticed. And these are the ones that can be worth life-changing money. But here's where it gets even crazier. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth millions can be almost invisible. We're talking about tiny details, subtle imperfections, microscopic clues. And if you don't know exactly what to look for, you will miss it, just like thousands of people already have. Let's rewind for a second. Back in 1955, the Denver Mint was producing pennies at a massive scale. Machines running fast, workers under pressure. And that's when mistakes start to happen. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. And occasionally, something slips through that shouldn't exist at all. That's exactly what happened here. A rare combination of minting errors, die issues, and production quirks created a version of the 1955D penny that stands out. But only if you know the signs. But most people don't, and that's why these coins still show up in circulation. Now here's the part most people completely miss. It's not just about the date and mint mark. It's about the condition, and one specific visual detail that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. But before I tell you that, you need to understand something important. Coin value doesn't just come from age. It comes from rarity, demand, and condition. And when all three line up perfectly, that's when prices explode. We're talking auctions, bidding wars, collectors willing to pay insane amounts. And yes, that's how a simple penny can hit millions. But here's where it gets interesting again. Some of these valuable 1955D pennies don't look impressive at all. They're not shiny. They're not perfect, in fact. Some look slightly off, almost like something went wrong. And that's exactly the point. Because those mistakes, those tiny flaws, that's where the money is hiding. Now imagine this. You find a 1955 penny. You check the front. Looks normal. Then you flip it over. Still looks normal. Then you notice the small d under the date. At this point, most people stop. They assume it's common. They toss it aside, game over. But not for you, because now you know. There's something more. You look closer. You start paying attention to the details most people ignore. The sharpness of the lettering, the alignment, the surface texture, and then you see it. That subtle difference, that tiny imperfection, the thing that shouldn't be there, but is, and in that moment, everything changes. Because that one detail could mean you're holding something incredibly rare, something collectors have been searching for years. And here's the shocking part. Some of these rare 1955D pennies have sold for staggering amounts. Not hundreds, not thousands, but up to $3 million in top condition with the right characteristics. Let that sink in. $3 million for a penny. But the real twist? Most of these coins were never meant to exist. They weren't special editions. They weren't announced. They were accidents. And that's exactly why they're so valuable. Because once collectors realized what slipped through, it was already too late. The coins were out there, mixed in with billions of others, waiting, hidden, forgotten until someone looks closely enough. And most people never do. They rush, they assume, they miss it. But you won't, because now, every time you see a 1955 penny, you're going to pause. You're going to check for that D. And more importantly, you're going to look deeper, because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is almost invisible. And the next time you get change, you won't just see coins, you'll see possibilities. Because one small detail, one overlooked penny, could quietly be worth a fortune. So before you spend your next coin, take a second look, because the one you ignore might be the one everyone else is searching for. Don't skip this, because a single penny in your pocket right now could be worth up to $3 million. And most people throw it away without ever checking. Yeah, I'm serious, and what's crazy is, this isn't some ancient coin locked in a museum. This is a coin millions of Americans have held, spent, or ignored. But here's where it gets interesting. The coin I'm talking about looks almost identical to an ordinary penny. Same size, same color, same face, nothing flashy, which means one thing. You could already have it and not even know it. Now before you roll your eyes, thinking there's no way, let me show you why collectors are quietly hunting this coin. And why one tiny detail can turn 1 cent into a life-changing payday. It all starts in 1970. A normal year. Nothing special, right? That's exactly what makes this coin so dangerous to miss. Because in 1970, the US Mint produced millions of Lincoln pennies. Most were completely ordinary, worth 1 cent. But hidden among them were a few that should never have existed. And most people completely miss this. See, pennies from 1970 came from multiple mints: Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Denver. Now here's the part you need to pay attention to. The Denver coins carry a small D mint mark just below the date. Tiny, easy to overlook. But on a few extremely rare coins, something went very wrong during production. And that mistake is what turns this penny into a potential $3 million jackpot. But the real value isn't what you think. It's not just about the D, it's about what happened during the minting process. You see, coins are made using dies metal stamps that imprint the design onto blank coins, and sometimes those dies get mixed up, or worse, reused when they shouldn't be. Now imagine this: a die meant for a completely different type of coin accidentally being used on a Denver penny. Sounds impossible, right? But it happened, and when it did, it created one of the most mysterious and valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. But here's the twist. At first glance, this rare 1970 penny looks completely normal. That's why people spend them. That's why they end up in jars, drawers, or lost in couch cushions. But if you know exactly what to look for, everything changes. Collectors call it a transitional error, and it's insanely rare. We're talking about a coin that slipped through the cracks of the US Mint, unnoticed, uncorrected, and released into circulation. And the scary part? Most of them were never found, which means there could still be one hiding somewhere right now. But wait, because this gets even more intense. Not every 1970 penny is valuable, not even close. In fact, 99.999% of them are worth exactly 1 cent. So what separates the $1 million coin from the pocket change? It comes down to details so small, most people never notice them. Things like the sharpness of the lettering, the spacing of the date, even the texture of the surface. But there's one specific clue that changes everything. And if you miss it, you could literally lose millions. Before I reveal it, let me tell you something that will blow your mind. One of these rare pennies was discovered by accident, not by a collector. Not by an expert, but by an ordinary person, just checking their change. They almost didn't look twice, and that moment changed everything. Because once experts examined the coin, they realized it wasn't just rare. It was one of the rarest Lincoln pennies ever created. And the value? It skyrocketed into the millions. Now imagine that for a second, a coin you could find in your own home, worth more than a mansion. But here's where it gets really crazy. There are still people out there who have this coin and have no idea, which brings us back to you, because if you've ever handled pennies, there's a chance, however small, that you've seen this coin before. Maybe you ignored it, maybe you spent it, or maybe it's sitting somewhere right now, waiting to be discovered. But here's the moment you've been waiting for. The one detail that separates a regular 1970 penny from the one worth up to $3 million. It's the die error, specifically a rare mismatch in the design that shouldn't exist on a Denver-minted coin. Experts look for unusual characteristics tied to transitional die usage, signs that the coin was struck using the wrong die type. And when those signs are confirmed, the value explodes. We're not talking hundreds, we're not talking thousands, we're talking millions. But here's the catch. These details are subtle, you won't notice them unless you're really looking, and that's why so many of these coins slip through people's hands unnoticed. That's why they end up in circulation. And that's why collectors are still searching every single day. Because finding one isn't just luck, it's knowing what others don't. So the next time you see a 1970 penny with a small d under the date, don't ignore it, don't toss it aside. Take a closer look, because hidden in something so ordinary could be something extraordinary. And if you miss it, you might be walking away from millions without even realizing it. So check your coins. Look again, because the next penny you pick up might not be just a penny at all. Seriously. Right now, there's a specific 1975 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark that most people think is just pocket change. But a few of these have shocked collectors, and the reason why is something almost nobody notices, and if you miss it, you could literally spend it by accident. Here's why this matters. Millions of 1975 pennies were made in Denver. That little d under the date? It tells you exactly where it came from. Most people see it and move on. No second thought. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all D mint mark pennies from 1975 are the same. Some carry tiny differences, mistakes, variations, or subtle details that turn a 1-cent coin into something collectors will fight over. And most people completely miss this. Imagine dumping your change on the table, flipping through pennies, and one of them quietly sitting there, worth hundreds or even thousands. While you're about to toss it into a jar. It happens more often than you think. Now let's talk about the first clue, the mint mark itself. On a normal 1975 D penny, that D should look clean, sharp, and properly aligned. Nothing special, but a small number of these coins show something different. A slightly off-positioned mint mark. Or a mint mark that looks thicker than usual, or even double. At first glance, it's easy to miss. It doesn't jump out. You have to look closely, but if you see even a hint that the D looks off, pause right there, because that could be the beginning of something much bigger. But don't get too excited yet, because the real value isn't what you think. Most collectors don't just look at the mint mark. They look at how the entire coin was struck, and this is where things start to get rare. Some 1975 D pennies were struck with slight misalignments in the die. That means the design, the face of the coin didn't hit perfectly. You might notice the letters in Liberty look a little doubled, or the date, 1975, looks like it has a shadow behind it. Not blurry, not worn, but duplicated. That's called doubling. And when it's real, when it's from the die itself, it can turn a simple penny into a serious collectible. But here's the catch. Most doubling is fake. Well, not fake, just worthless. It's called machine doubling, and it happens all the time during production. Collectors ignore it, but true double die coins? Those are rare, and they're the ones that bring in the money. So how do you tell the difference? That's the part almost nobody gets right. Real double dies look strong, clear, intentional. The letters appear split, not smeared. Almost like the coin was stamped twice perfectly. If you see that on your 1975 D penny, Don't spend it, but we're still not at the big reveal, because there's another detail one that's even more overlooked, and it's hiding in plain sight. The condition. Yeah, I know. Everyone says condition matters, but with this coin, it matters more than you think. A worn 1975 penny? Maybe worth a few cents. Nothing exciting, but a high-grade example one. That looks almost in touch can jump in value fast. We're talking bright copper color. No scratches, sharp details in Lincoln's face. And full shine. Across the surface, coins like that are called uncirculated, and they're far rarer than people realize. Think about it. Most pennies get used, dropped, scratched, spent over and over again. Very few survive in near perfect condition. And when they do, collectors notice. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some 1975 pennies were struck on plankets that weren't quite right. That means the blank piece of metal used to make the coin had issues. Sometimes slightly off weight, sometimes slightly off color. Sometimes even struck on the wrong type of metal. It's rare, but when it happens, the value can skyrocket. And most people would never know. They just see a penny that looks a little weird and ignore it. Huge mistake, because those weird coins are exactly what collectors hunt for. Now here's the moment you've been waiting for. What are these actually worth? A regular 1975 penny in average condition? Maybe 1 cent, maybe a few cents, nothing special. But a high-grade uncirculated version? It can sell for $10, $20, even $50 depending on quality. Now at a strong strike, beautiful luster, and suddenly you're looking at $100 or more. But wait, if you find one with real double die features, now you're in a completely different category. Those can reach into the hundreds, sometimes pushing past $1,000 depending on how strong the doubling is and the condition of the coin, and if it also has an unusual mint mark or striking error. Now you're talking about a coin that collectors might aggressively bid on, because pieces like that don't show up often, and when they do, they don't stay cheap. But here's the part that should make you check your coins right now. Most of these valuable pennies were never pulled out of circulation. They're still out there. Mixed in with ordinary change, sitting in jars, hiding in old drawers. Forgotten in piggy banks, and every day people spend them without even realizing it. That could be you right now. That penny you got as change yesterday? The one you didn't even look at? It could be the one, but only if you know what to look for. Check the mint mark. Look for doubling. Examine the condition. Watch for anything unusual, because the difference between 1 cent and hundreds, even thousands, is often something so small. Most people never see it. And once it's gone, you don't get it back. So before you spend another penny, take a second look, because that ordinary 1975 Lincoln penny, it might not be so ordinary after all.